Did I ever tell you how lucky you are? By Dr. Seuss. When I was quite young and quite small for my size, I met an old man in the desert of Dries. As he sang me a song I will never forget, at least, well, I haven't forgotten it yet. He sat in a terribly prickly place, but he sang with a sunny, sweet smile on his face. When you think things are bad, when you feel sour and blue, when you start to get mad, you should do what I do. Just tell yourself, ducky, you're really quite lucky. Some people are much more, oh, ever so much more, oh, muchly, much, much more unlucky than you. Be glad you don't work on a bungle-bung bridge. That's where they're building across Boober Bay and Bum Bridge. It's a troublesome world. All the people who are in it are troubled with troubles almost every minute. You ought to be thankful a whole heaping lot for the places and people you're lucky you're not. Just suppose, for example, you lived in Gazak and got caught in that traffic on Zayat Highway 8. Or suppose for an instant you lived in Gazer with your bedroom up here and your bathroom up there. Suppose, just suppose, you were poor Herbie Hart, who has taken his thrombin abater apart. He never will know if the gick or the gore fits into the scrux or the snux or the snore. Yes, ducky, you're lucky you're not Herbie Hart, who has taken his thrombin apart. Think they work you too hard? Think of poor Alizard. He has to mow grass in his uncle's backyard, and it's quick-growing grass, and it grows as he mows. The faster he mows it, the faster it grows. And all that his stingy old uncle will pay for shoving that mower around in that hay is perfulous pay of 2 dukels a day. And Allie can't live on such perfulous pay, and so he has to paint flagpoles on Sundays in groves. How lucky you are you don't live in his shoes. And poor Mr. Bix, every morning at 6, poor Mr. Bix has his boorfin to fix. It doesn't seem fair, it doesn't seem right, but his boorfin just seems to shump every night. It slumps in a heap, sadly needing repair. Bix figures it's due to the local night air. It takes him all day to unschlump it, and then the night air comes back and it slumps once again. So don't you feel blue, don't get down in the dumps. You're lucky you don't have a boorfin that slumps. And while we're at it, consider the schlots, the crumpled horned, web-footed, green-bearded slots, whose tail is entailed in unsolvable knots. If he isn't muchly more worse off than you, I'll eat my umbrella, that's what I will do. And you're lucky indeed if you don't ride on a camel. To ride on a camel, you sit on a whammel. A whammel, you know, is sort of a saddle held on by a button that's known as a faddle. And boy, if your old whammel faddle gets loose, I'm telling you, ducky, you're gone like a goose. And poor Mr. Potter, T-crosser, I-dotter, he has to cross T's and he has to dot I's in an I&T factory out in Van Nuys. Oh, the jobs people work out west near Hotchet Hotch, there's a Hotchet Hotcher bee watcher. His job is to keep both eyes on a lazy town bee. A bee that is watched will work harder, you see. Well, he watched and he watched, but in spite of his watch, that bee didn't work any harder, not much. So then somebody said, our old bee watching man just isn't bee watching as hard as he can. He ought to be watched by another watcher. The thing that we need is a bee watcher. Well, The bee watcher, watched the bee watcher. He didn't watch well, so another hot watcher had to come in and watch the watcher. And today all the hotchers who live in Hawatch are seen watching, watching, and watcher who's watching that bee. You're not a watcher, you're lucky, you see? And how fortunate you're not Professor DeBreeze, who spent the past 32 years, if you please, trying to teach Irish ducks how to read Javanese. And think of the poor puffing Pooglehorn players who have to parade down the Poodlehorn stairs every morning to wake up the Prince of Poobucan. It's awful how often these Poogles get broken. Oh, and just suppose you were poor Harry Hadow. Try as he will, he can't make a shadow. And he thinks perhaps something's wrong with his guys, and I think, by golly, there probably is. And the brother Bazoo, the poor brother's Bazoo, suppose your hair grew like theirs happened to do. You think you're unlucky? I'm telling you, ducky, some people are muchly, oh, ever so muchly more unlucky than you. And suppose that you lived in the forest in France, where the average young person just hasn't a chance to escape from the perilous pants-eating plants. But your pants are safe. You're a fortunate guy that you ought to be shouting, "How lucky am I!" And speaking of plants, you should be greatly gladdish you're not Farmer Falkbird's 16th radish. And you're so lucky you're not Gucky Gown, who lives by himself 90 miles out of town in the ruins of the Ronk. Ronk is rather run down. And you're so lucky you're not a left sock left behind by mistake in the caverns of Croc. Thank goodness for all the things you are not. Thank goodness you're not something someone forgot and left all alone in some punkerish place, like a rusty tin coat hanger hanging in space. That's why I say, ducky, don't grumble, don't stew. Some critters are much, oh, ever so much, so muchly much more unlucky than you. The end.